The crystal chandeliers of the Grand Imperial Hotel cast thousands of tiny rainbows across the ballroom floor. And Mira Sharma had never felt more out of place in her entire 26 years of existence. She adjusted the black bow tie that came with her catering uniform. Her fingers still stained faintly with cerulean blue paint from her morning art session. "Table 7 needs more champagne," her supervisor hissed, shoving a silver tray into her hands. "And for heaven's sake, smile. These people donated more money tonight than you'll see in a lifetime." Mira plastered on her most professional expression and wove through the crowd of Mumbai's elite. Designer gowns swished past her, diamonds caught the light. And conversations about summer homes in Switzerland floated through the air like a foreign language. She would never speak. She had almost reached Table 7 when it happened. A woman in towering stilettos stepped backward without looking, her heel catching Mira's ankle with devastating precision. Time seemed to slow as the tray left her hands. Champagne glasses performing a graceful aerial ballet before gravity remembered its duty. Mira tumbled forward, her arms windmilling uselessly, and landed squarely in the lap of the man seated at the head of the table. The champagne followed, cascading down his immaculate charcoal suit like a golden waterfall. The ballroom fell silent. 500 pairs of eyes turned toward them. Mira looked up into the face of Arjun Malhotra, founder of Nexus Technologies, whose net worth was regularly featured in financial magazines, and whose reputation for cold professionalism was legendary. She was going to be fired. She was going to be sued. She was going to have to change her name and move to a remote village where no one had ever heard of the internet. "I am so incredibly sorry," she whispered, her voice barely functioning. "Please let me." She tried to stand, but her trembling legs betrayed her, and she only succeeded in pressing herself more firmly against his chest. His very solid, very warm chest that smelled inexplicably of sandalwood, something uniquely masculine. His dark eyes studied her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. She waited for the explosion, the demands for her termination, the threats of legal action. Instead, the corner of his mouth twitched. "Well," Arjun said, his voice a deep rumble she felt more than heard. "This is certainly the most interesting thing that's happened to me at one of these events in years." Shocked murmur rippled through the nearby tables. Mira blinked, certain she had misheard. "Your suit," she managed. "It's ruined. I'll pay for it. It might take me approximately 40 years, but I'll pay for it." Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement? Curiosity? She couldn't decipher it. "That won't be necessary," he shifted, his hands finding her waist to steady her as she finally managed to scramble to her feet. The touch was brief, professional, yet it sent an unexpected current through her entire body. Her supervisor materialized, face purple with mortification. "Mr. Malhotra, I cannot apologize enough. This employee will be dealt with immediately. She will never work in this city again, I can promise you that." "That seems rather extreme." Arjun stood, champagne dripping from his jacket with a dignity that should have been impossible. "It was an accident." "I believe the woman in the red dress," he nodded, toward the stiletto offender, "bears more responsibility than your waitress." Mira stared at him. The most powerful man in the room was defending her. A waitress who had just baptized him in expensive alcohol. Her supervisor sputtered. "Protocol demands. I'm not particularly interested in protocol." Arjun's tone shifted, carrying an edge of authority that silenced further argument. He turned back to Mira, and she noticed for the first time how tired he looked beneath the polished exterior. Shadows lingered under his eyes. There was a tension in his jaw that suggested he carried burdens invisible to everyone else in this glittering room. "What's your name?" he asked. "Mira Sharma." He nodded slowly, as if filing the information away for future reference. "Well, Mira Sharma, I hope the rest of your evening improves." He reached into his ruined jacket and withdrew a business card, pressing it into her palm. His fingers brushed hers, and that strange electricity sparked again. "If you find yourself in need of employment after tonight, call this number." Before she could respond, before she could even process what was happening, he turned and walked toward the exit, leaving a trail of champagne droplets and stunned silence in his wake. Mira looked down at the card in her hand. Simple, elegant, with nothing but a phone number embossed in silver. What just happened? Priya's voice came from behind her. Her best friend had managed to witness the entire catastrophe from across the room. Did Arjun Malhotra just give you his personal number? I think I'm dreaming, Mira whispered. Or having a nightmare. I can't tell which. Priya grabbed her arm, eyes wide with excitement. Mira, do you know who that man is? He hasn't dated anyone since his broken engagement 3 years ago. He barely speaks to anyone outside of business. And he just looked at you like you were the most fascinating thing in this entire room. He looked at me like I was insane. Because I am. I just fell into a billionaire's lap. And his reaction, Priya continued breathlessly, left you breathless. I could see it from across the room. Your face went completely red. Mira touched her cheeks, which were still burning. I was embarrassed. You were something, Priya said knowingly. But I don't think embarrassment quite covers it. Later that night, in her tiny apartment, with its leaky faucet and walls covered in her unsold paintings, Mira sat on her worn sofa and stared at the business card. The events of the evening felt surreal. It's like something from a movie she would never have paid to see. She should throw the card away. She should forget about dark eyes and steadying hands and the way he had defended her without hesitation. Men like Arjun Malhotra existed in a different universe. One where waitresses didn't belong except as background decoration. But something made her tuck the card carefully into her wallet. Right next to the photograph of her late mother, she didn't call. Not that night. Not the next day. Not the day after that. She told herself it was pride. She told herself it was practicality. But deep down, Mira knew it was fear that the moment in the ballroom had meant nothing. That she had imagined the connection she felt when his eyes met hers. Some doors once opened could never be closed again. And Mira wasn't sure she was ready for what waited on the other side. 3 weeks had passed since the champagne incident, and Mira had almost convinced herself it had been a fever dream. She returned to her routine of morning shifts at the cafe, afternoon painting sessions in her cramped apartment, and evening walks along Marine Drive where the sunset painted the Arabian Sea. In colors she desperately tried to capture on canvas. The business card remained untouched in her wallet, a silent reminder of a moment that felt increasingly unreal with each passing day. She was elbow-deep in burnt sienna paint, working on a commissioned piece for a local restaurant owner who wanted something cheerful but not too cheerful. When the knock came, Mira wiped her hands on her already ruined jeans and opened the door. Expecting Priya with her usual unannounced visits and complaints about her dating life, instead, Arjun Malhotra stood in her narrow hallway, looking spectacularly out of place. In his tailored navy suit among the peeling wallpaper and flickering fluorescent lights. You didn't call, he said simply. Mira's mouth opened and closed several times before words finally emerged. How did you find my address? I have resources. He paused, something almost sheepish crossing his features. That sounds sinister. My assistant located you through the catering company's employment records. I wanted to ensure you hadn't lost your position because of our encounter. I didn't. She leaned against the doorframe, acutely aware of the paint smeared across her cheek and the chaos of her apartment visible behind her. They couldn't fire me. Apparently, defending a waitress against protocol earned you some powerful admirers among the staff. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. May I come in? Every rational instinct screamed that this was insane. Billionaires did not visit struggling artists in dilapidated apartment buildings. There had to be an ulterior motive, a catch. Something that would reveal the cruel punchline of this elaborate joke. But curiosity had always been Mira's greatest weakness. She stepped aside. Arjun entered her small living space, and she watched him take in the canvases stacked against every wall. The makeshift easel by the window, the explosion of colors that had become her entire world. His expression remained unreadable as he moved closer to examine her work. These are yours, he said. It wasn't a question. Guilty. As charged, stopped before a large canvas she had. Finished last month, abstract piece depicting two figures reaching toward each other across a divide of swirling blues and golds. Something in his posture shifted, tension bleeding from his shoulders as he studied the brushstrokes. "This is extraordinary," he murmured. Mira felt heat rise to her cheeks. "It's unsold, if that tells you anything about its commercial appeal." Commercial appeal and artistic merit rarely overlap. He turned to face her, and she was struck again by the weariness behind his composed exterior. "I came here with a proposition, Mira." Her heart stuttered at the way her name sounded in his voice. "I'm building a new corporate campus. 30 floors of offices, conference rooms, collaborative spaces. My architects have created something technically impressive, but utterly soulless." He gestured toward her paintings. "I want your work throughout the building. Original pieces that will make people feel something other than corporate dread." Mira laughed before she could stop herself. "You want to hire me? Based on seeing my apartment gallery? Based on seeing your talent?" He reached into his jacket and withdrew a folder. "This is the contract. The compensation is outlined on page 3. Take whatever time you need to review it." She accepted the folder with numb fingers and flipped to page 3. The number printed there made her vision blur. "This is a mistake," she whispered. "This amount could fund a small country. It's standard for commissioned corporate art of this scale. Mr. Malhotra Arjun?" She looked up, finding his dark eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made breathing difficult. "Arjun, you don't know anything about me? I could be terrible. I could miss every deadline. I could create pieces you absolutely hate, then I'll hate them in expensive silence." He stepped closer, and she caught that sandalwood scent again, now mixed with something warm and indefinably him. "But I don't think I will. I've seen how you look at color, at light. The same way I look at code, like it's a language only we can understand." The space between them felt charged, electric with possibility. "There's one condition," he continued. "The work must be completed at my penthouse studio. I have the space, the supplies, the lighting you'll need, and I want to be involved in the creative process. You want to watch me paint? I want to understand what you see when you create." His voice dropped lower. "I spend my days solving problems with logic and algorithms. I've forgotten what it feels like to create something purely for beauty." Amir should have said no. The arrangement was unconventional, potentially inappropriate, definitely dangerous for her carefully guarded heart. "When do I start?" She heard herself ask. The smile that transformed his face was worth every rational objection she had abandoned. "Tomorrow. My driver will collect you at 9. He moved toward the door, then paused, turning back with an expression she couldn't decode. "I'm glad you fell into my lap, Mira Sharma." The door closed behind him, and Mira sank onto her paint-stained sofa. Clutching the contract that would change everything, Priya burst in 20 minutes later, having apparently developed psychic abilities about dramatic life developments. "Tell me everything," she demanded. A black Mercedes was parked outside. A Mercedes, Mira, in our neighborhood. Mira handed her the contract wordlessly. Priya's scream could probably be heard 3 buildings away. "This is fate," she declared, bouncing on the sofa. "This is destiny. This is every romance novel I've ever read, coming to life in your miserable little apartment." "It's a job," Mira protested weakly. "A professional arrangement. He tracked you down. He came to your home. He wants you to paint in his penthouse while he watches." Priya grabbed her shoulders. "Mira, this man is interested in more than your brushwork. You're being ridiculous." But later that night, as Mira lay in bed staring at the water-stained ceiling, she couldn't stop thinking about the way Arjun had looked at her paintings and at her like she was something worth finding, like she was something worth keeping. The penthouse studio exceeded every expectation Mira had tried not to form. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Mumbai skyline, natural light flooding a space equipped with professional easels, premium supplies, and enough canvas to paint for years. "This is too much," she breathed. Running her fingers along rows of oil paints in every conceivable shade, Arjun stood in the doorway, watching her discovery with quiet satisfaction. "I may have consulted with several artists about requirements. I wanted you to have everything you might need. prepared this for me. Before I even accepted. I was optimistic. He loosened his tie, a gesture that seemed unconscious, but made him suddenly more human. I'll be working from my home office most days. Join me for lunch when you're ready for a break. The first week established a rhythm. Mira painted through the mornings, losing herself in color and form, while Arjun worked behind closed doors on whatever technological empires required his attention. They shared lunches on the terrace, simple meals that stretched into long conversations about everything and nothing. She learned that he had built Nexus from nothing, coding the first programs in his childhood bedroom while his parents worried he would never amount to anything. She learned that his broken engagement had been a mutual recognition that he had been married to his work first and his fiancée second. She learned that beneath the billionaire exterior lived a man achingly lonely in crowds, comfortable only with ideas and innovation. He learned about her mother, who had died believing Mira's artistic dreams would come true. He learned about the scholarships lost and opportunities missed, the years of struggling to prove that passion could be practical. He learned that she painted to honor promises made to someone who could no longer hear them kept. "Show me," he said one evening, 3 weeks into the arrangement. He had abandoned his office early, claiming distraction, and now stood beside her easel, watching her work on a large abstract piece. "Show you what?" "How you choose. How you decide which color comes next." Mira considered the question seriously. "It's not really a decision. It's more like listening. The painting tells me what it needs. That makes no logical sense. Art rarely does." She selected a brush and loaded it with deep purple. "Here, give me your hand." He hesitated only briefly before offering his right hand. Mira guided it to the canvas, her smaller fingers wrapped around his, directing the stroke. "Feel how the bristles drag," she murmured. "That resistance is the canvas pushing back. You have to find the balance between pressure and release." They painted together in silence, her hand guiding his through sweeping curves and delicate details. She was acutely aware of his chest against her back, his breath warm against her hair, the solid strength of him surrounding her without confining. "I understand now," he said softly, his voice rumbling near her ear. "Why you love this?" She turned her head, finding his face inches from hers. Time suspended itself, the setting sun painting them both in shades of amber and rose. "Arjun," she whispered, "I should apologize." But he didn't move away. "This isn't professional." "No, I'm your employer." "Yes, I thought about kissing you every day since you fell into my lap." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "That's not very practical, I know." His free hand rose to cup her cheek, thumb tracing her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "I built my entire life on practicality, logic, reasonable decisions, and then you crashed into my world covered in champagne, and I haven't made a reasonable decision since." The kiss, when it came, was nothing like she expected. Not demanding or possessive, but questioning, a gentle exploration that asked permission with every brush of his lips. Mira answered by rising onto her toes, her paint-stained fingers tangling in his hair. Pulling him closer, he deepened the kiss with a sound that was almost desperate. His arms wrapping around her waist, lifting her slightly so their bodies aligned perfectly. She felt his heartbeat racing against her chest, matching the frantic rhythm of her own. When they finally broke apart, both breathing unsteadily, Arjun pressed his forehead to hers. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "Relationships, vulnerability. I'm excellent at building companies and terrible at building connections. I don't know how to do this either." Mira traced the line of his jaw. "Trust people. Believe good things might actually happen. Perhaps we could figure it out together." She kissed him again in response, and this time there was nothing questioning about it. The weeks that followed blurred into a haze of creation and discovery. Mira painted her best work while Arjun watched, asked questions, learned to see the world through her artist's eyes. He took her to galleries after hours, 2 private collections she had only read about, 2 rooftops where the stars competed with city lights. She slept in his bed for the first time on a rainy Thursday, both of them trembling with nervous anticipation despite their earlier bravado. He was tender where she expected demanding, patient where she expected urgency. And afterward he held her against his chest and confessed that he had never felt so terrified in his life. "Why terrified?" she asked, drawing patterns on his skin. "Because I have everything to lose now." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "Before you, I had wealth and success and an empty penthouse. Now I have something that matters." Mira understood exactly what he meant. The paintings took shape. Beautifully 30 pieces capturing human connection in all its messy glory. Arjun's colleagues began to notice changes in him. His business partner Vikram commented that he actually smiled in meetings now, a phenomenon previously considered impossible. But happiness, Mira would learn, often attracted those who wished to destroy it, and their story was only beginning. The photograph appeared on Mumbai's most popular gossip site on a Monday morning. Mira and Arjun on his terrace, silhouetted against the sunset, locked in an embrace that left nothing to interpretation. The headline screamed, "Tech billionaire's secret affair with waitress gold digger or true love." Her phone exploded with notifications. Comments ranged from supportive to cruel, with the cruel significantly outweighing anything kind. She's obviously after his money. Another, "Poor girl thinking she hit the jackpot. He'll get bored with her in a month." Mira sat in Arjun's studio, staring at the screen, feeling something inside her crumble. "Don't read them." Arjun appeared in the doorway, his face tight with controlled fury. "I'm already in contact with lawyers about the privacy violation. It doesn't matter." Her voice sounded distant to her own ears. "They're not wrong, are they? On paper, I am exactly what they're saying. A waitress who fell into a billionaire's lap and somehow ended up in his bed. Mira, how did they even get this photo?" She stood abruptly, needing distance, space to breathe. "Who knew about us?" The answer arrived 2 hours later in the form of Sunaina Kapoor, Arjun's former fiancée, who swept into the penthouse unannounced with the confidence of someone who still considered it her territory. "Darling." She air-kissed Arjun's cheek, ignoring Mira entirely. "I came as soon as I saw the news. You must be devastated by this gold digger situation, Sunaina." Arjun's voice could have frozen the Arabian Sea. "You weren't invited. We're old friends. I don't need an invitation." Her gaze finally landed on Mira, sweeping from her paint-stained clothes to her uncombed hair with obvious disdain. "Ah, the artist. I've seen your work online, very ... amateur." "You need to leave," Arjun said flatly. "I'm trying to help you." Sunaina's sweetness curdled into something bitter. "This girl is going to destroy your reputation. The board is already asking questions. Your investors are nervous. Is she really worth risking everything you've built?" Mira felt the words land like physical blows. She had worried about these exact things in her darkest moments. Questions she had never voiced aloud, because voicing them might make them real. "My reputation is my concern," Arjun replied, "as are my relationships. Neither require your input." Sunaina's composure cracked slightly. "You threw away 3 years with me without a second thought. And now you're willing to sacrifice everything for someone you've known barely 2 months? She's using you, Arjun. She sees your wallet, not you. Get out. The truth hurts, doesn't it?" Sunaina smiled coldly at Mira. "Enjoy it while it lasts, sweetheart. Men like Arjun get bored. They always return to their own kind eventually." She swept out as dramatically as she had arrived. Leaving poison in her wake, the silence that followed felt suffocating. "She leaked the photo," Arjun said quietly. "I'll prove it. I'll make sure she faces consequences. Will that change anything?" Mira wrapped her arms around herself. "Will that make the comments disappear? Will that make your board stop questioning your judgment? I don't care about any of that, but I do." Her voice broke. "I care that loving me might cost you everything. I care that the world sees me as a charity case or a con artist. I care that no matter how many paintings I create, I'll always be the waitress who trapped the billionaire." Arjun crossed the room, taking her face in his hands. "Listen to me. I've spent my entire adult life accumulating wealth and success and the admiration of people whose opinions don't matter. None of it made me happy. None of it made me feel alive. Arjun, you did that. You make me laugh. You make me see beauty in things I used to overlook. You make me want to be someone worth loving. His eyes glistened. If the world can't accept that, then the world can go to hell. She wanted to believe him. Every fiber of her being wanted to surrender to the certainty in his voice, but the doubts were louder. I need time, she whispered. I need to think. She saw the fear flash across his face before he controlled it. How much time? I don't know. I'm sorry. She pulled away, grabbing her bag with trembling hands. I need to figure out who I am outside of all this. Whether I'm someone worth fighting for or just someone who got lucky. Mira, please, I'll finish the commission. I promise. But I can't be here right now. I can't think clearly when you're looking at me like that. She fled before she could change her mind. Before his heartbroken expression could convince her to stay in a situation she didn't deserve. Priya found her 3 hours later, curled on her old sofa, surrounded by the paintings that had started everything. You're an idiot, Priya said gently. Settling beside her, I know. That man is completely in love with you. I know. So why are you here instead of there? Mira stared at the ceiling. Because I'm terrified that everyone is right. That I'm not enough. That one day he'll wake up and realize he made a mistake. Priya took her hand. Have you considered that maybe you're the one making the mistake? By running before he can prove everyone wrong? The question haunted Mira through sleepless nights that stretched into an agonizing week. She painted alone in her apartment, pouring heartbreak onto canvas. She ignored Arjun's messages, each one more raw than the last. She told herself she was being sensible, protecting both of them from inevitable disappointment. But her art knew the truth. Every painting she created was filled with him as eyes, his hands, the curve of his smile. He had become her palette, her inspiration, her light, and she had left him standing alone in the darkness.